hardening the tenant always seems a bit of an odd thing to say, but I mean, I put it like this. If you had a server or even an endpoint, even a laptop, you wouldn't deploy it in an organizational sense without doing some things to harden it, to lock it down, to protect it. It would seem a reasonable thing to do. You'd probably want to make sure that only passwords of a certain length could be used to access it. You might want to make sure you set up the cycle by which its updates would be applied. You might even want to have a couple of controls in there around when the antivirus gets updated and when it runs. Just some basic bits and bobs like that. You need to look at the tenant in exactly the same way. You wouldn't put a server out there without hardening it. You shouldn't put your tenant out there without hardening it. Okay. And if that seems like quite a big and a bit of a vague statement, a bit of a vague kind of, what John's saying is just a bit, there's no real clear definition to it. Let me give it some clarity. There's an organisation called the CIS, I think it's the Centre for Internet Security, if my memory serves me right, and they publish essentially benchmarks, security benchmarks, and their security benchmark for 365 is a set of the very best practice security recommendations they have for 365. Do you know how many of them there are? Nope. 140. There are 140 of them. Now, some of them will not be terribly relevant, but a good 90 plus of them are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they cover everything from how well you've defined what constitutes a good password, whether or not you're making provisions to ensure that people can't log in from North Korea, and if they do, you know that someone's trying to. How you're going to deal with the issue of guest or external access into your tenant, a whole range of configuration sort of settings and switches. Yeah. So if you're going to harden your tenant, you really should be looking at something like that and saying, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this my golden image, my standard image, that my tenant should conform to, should comply to. And I'm going to push that out, because then I know I've done one thing right from the get-go, and this is the preventative aspect of cyber resilience. Yeah. We're doing our best to prevent being exploited. There's something else that's relevant here, of course, and that is once you've pushed your tenant out, and you really can't afford to just go, there you are, I've done my job. Because we live in a world where admins are overworked. They're constantly making changes and fixes, really, from a pragmatism point of view, just to get stuff done. Mm-hmm. And therefore, there's a tendency over time for this lovely, secure, CIS-approved and benchmarked configuration to drift. That's the only way to describe it, yeah? Mm-hmm. So what you need to do is not only push it out and be proud that you've pushed it out right, but also have a way to keep an eye on it. And this becomes even more important if you're responsible for multiple tenants. I was talking to an educational establishment not too long ago. They've got 9 tenants they're responsible for. Yeah, they want to make sure that all 9 are singing off the same song sheet. Yeah, quite right too. So that's our first pillar, tenant hardening.